Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight, under the conversation, we have a special guest. I've been prodding this gentleman for probably 6 months, maybe even a year, and I knew him before I knew him. I knew of his work, I should say, because what brought my attention, and we were talking off camera, I was saying how important media is. He had done a campaign for Megan Marshall for county legislature. And I watched her campaign from the time it started to the time it finished, and she won her seat. And here in Kansas City, as far as I'm concerned, they've been slow to adapt things. And Quentin Lucas really put a different flip on how politics were brought to the community when he ran his campaign to become first term mayor. And I seen that. And so by being in media, and so I recognized the job that this gentleman, I didn't know who the hell he was, but I'm like, man, whoever's handling this woman's campaign, they know what the hell they're doing. I've been in media since '08, when a lot of Black people were not in digital media per se, because the phones, you got to look at Apple phones, and none of that stuff really was out. And so I've seen what can be done and what can't be done. And without further ado, I want to introduce Timothy Smith. And I want him to talk a little bit about what he does and how he does it. And then we're going to go in an array of subjects. I love this because when I asked him, well, what can we talk about? He said, anything you want to talk about. So without further ado, Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you, Carlos, for the opportunity. I know we've been trying to get on for some time, but it is truly a pleasure and an honor to be on Cascade Media with you. Well, I'm Tim Smith, founder and president of D. Smith Consulting Group, which is a political consulting agency in Kansas City. We've been in campaigns and elections for about 5 years now, and we've worked a number of campaigns across the KC Metro, Jackson County, as you mentioned, with Miss Megan Marshall, as well as campaigns in Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, across the Midwest. And so we just want to be useful. We think that it's important to begin to elect the next generation of leaders, whether you come from a progressive point of view, more of a moderate point of view. And we also think it's important to be involved with important ballot measures that go to the ballot that can dictate how communities function going forward. I will be remiss if I did not say that it is a particular pleasure to be on with you because as a Black media outlet, those voices are often not amplified. And as a person who's from Detroit, Michigan, maybe one of the most Blackest towns in America, I think Black media needs to be on the forefront of every aspect of American life, whether it's political, social, whatever area, educational. Every institution in America needs to have a Black point of view. So I applaud you on your efforts with Cascade Media. Other than that, like I said, there's so much going on in the world.
Let's talk about a couple of issues, because I met you through the county situation, basically. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about what is your feelings, not necessarily about any particular thing that they're doing at the county, the overall, how the county operates, how much real representation do you feel that the public has, the Black, and I want to make this clear. Most of the time when I'm talking about influence, power, all I'm talking about is Black people. I'm not it's like I'm not interested in the white people, but it's a black and white world, and anybody that doesn't see that, uh, they need to they need to look in the mirror real hard. And uh, white people own like 100% of all forms of media, and when we try to get our little 2 cents in, I'm not really trying to talk about their issues. I'm trying to talk about how their issues and their laws are affecting Black people. And so, bringing back how do you feel overall the county is operating in regards to uh, the Black community's interests? And do you think that we have uh, leadership in the county?
Well, we have leadership in the county. I mean, it's a question of the quality of it. I think we saw a few years ago a number of African Americans get elected to the Jackson County Legislature, which was pretty unprecedented. In the past, it had been pretty much a white affair. But I think a lot of those people who were elected were inexperienced when it comes to county government or even government in general. And those who had some experience, I don't think that they were quite prepared for the onslaught around issues like property taxes, which affected the Black community, but everyone across the board. I also don't think that they were prepared for how political the environment was going to be. Because in the past on the legislature, those people mostly coasted. There was no scrutiny that they had to be under. I think some of the legislators were not anticipating that. But as far as the quality of leadership at the county, I mean, I think that there's been a number of things that certainly could have been done better. But it's easy to sit on the sideline and point fingers when you're not in the inner workings of it every day. I know my property taxes went up just like a number of other people. It disproportionately hurt poor people, seniors, people on fixed income. I think if I had to levy a criticism, I would think that I think I think that the administration could have been a bit more vocal in their empathy towards what was going on. I think when it comes to public perception and opinion, if you can't give me any help, at least let me know you care about what I'm going through, you know? And I think just from a political, strategic point of view, I think maybe that could have been handled a bit better. But I think these young leaders are navigating their way through. You know, I do think that we can't be hypercritical all the time simply because things aren't moving at the speed in which we want it to go. You know, we got to bring these young leaders up. And when I say young, I mean people 35 to 55. I mean, this is their time now. And so I like to encourage them, provide help. A number of these people I do have relationships with. I try to advise them as much as I can, because really it's about empowerment at the end of the day, particularly when it comes to Black leadership. Oftentimes, your own community is the most critical of you. And so I try not to fall into that game of that. I try to be helpful, but I think accountability is also important. And one thing that is particularly important to me when it comes to political leadership is integrity. You're not always going to be able to strike a deal that helps everyone involved. But it comes a time as a political leader when you have to step in front of a camera and say, hey, I just can't do this, or I just can't do that, or this is why I made this decision, or this is why I didn't do that. And I'm not seeing enough of that from leadership locally across the board. And I think that on a larger conversation and even national politics, it's what causes people to have legitimate distrust with the political process. And it causes people to check out of engaging in politics and things like voting and things like participating in elections. And from a Black community standpoint, we're the community that can least afford to not engage the political process. because we take ourselves out of accessing power altogether when we do that. And I know there's a lot of different sort of opinions on how valuable it is to engage in politics. However, it is an avenue to gain power for a community, and we have to make sure that we're doing that.
All right. There was two things or three things while you were talking that I'm going to say something that a lot of people are going to really look at me with a jaundiced eye. This election, I've been here since '78. It's the first election. I never missed no type of election. I didn't even go vote because I am so tired of corporate America. Our political, they think they political elite, whether it's the county, the city, or whatever. And they get on board with any type of scheme. And that's what they are. To milk our community, get their support so they can get these government dollars, these federal dollars, and these tax dollars. And then I'm saying they break every agreement that they have with the community. And, you know, we talked off camera. When I'm saying solutions, you have a bunch of consultants in this town, Black consultants. And all they do is have symposiums and talks and this and that about what's going on in the community. And I find this in general with politicians, leadership in general. Everybody knows the problem. But when you start trying to tell them the solution, they be like, well, what's the solution? When I mention the solution, it just goes over their head, and then they keep saying, what's the solution? You can't do anything until you can connect with your constituents. Cascade Media Group is the only viable means, not just here in Kansas City for Black people, in other cities, to connect with grassroots without spending really a dime on the connection because everybody has a phone. And using your community organizations and such, but they don't want to do that. And I'm calling them all out myself, the ministers, especially the ministers, unless they can benefit. They don't want to get involved in anything. And if you watched any of my commentary, I said in capital letters, the usual suspects. Reverend Miles, Jason Parsons, Sly James, and that Royals owner. They taking a picture at the Miles' church for this event. When I said that, my internet site just blew up with comments. And there was a lot of female comments. They were saying, they came to my church too. They came to my, where the hell you been for the last 48 months? You know, and I said in my column, any Black politician or minister that goes along with these schemes, I think we need to reevaluate them as it relates to leading our community as Martin Luther King into these burning houses. So, with that being said, I want to know, what is your position on the availability of capital? Because all of that stems around lack of capital, lack of resources, and the few individuals that are in these positions are the ones that are benefiting on these community agreements, per se. What's your position on that, or how do you see what I'm talking about? If I haven't framed it right, I think you got the gist.
I think on one hand, we're talking about politicians, and then on the other hand, we're talking about community leaders, whether it be ministers or people who are heads of nonprofit organizations or civic organizations, et cetera. I think from both points of view, from both sides of the table, I think it's important for people in leadership to have integrity. I think from a political point of view with politicians, oftentimes they're preoccupied with what lucrative relationships do I need to secure my seat long term. And so their political reality is really what's on the forefront of their mind rather than actual public service. I think we can point to Black politicians who do this, certainly white politicians who do it, whether you're Democrat or Republican, and everything in between. Um, our politics has sort of eroded in this way because you have people who are not serving the best interests of their constituents. It's just self-serving. And quite frankly, a lot of people get into politics to do that, period. It's all self-interest, even from the beginning. Everything else is just a facade. Um, Certainly some brothers and sisters of the cloth are guilty of that also. You know, I came up in that Black church tradition, so I'm not unfamiliar with you know, the sort of mechanics of everything that happens when the laying of the hands is not going on, when the music is not being played, when the Bible is not being preached, but everything that happens when that's not going on. And it's a sordid affair oftentimes because, you know, Black ministers are jockeying for whatever power they can muster from usually white power structures, whether it's corporations or white politicians. And again, just like when it comes to politicians, are you serving the best interests of the people in your pews, who are often low income people who are scavenging for whatever opportunities they can find, and they lean on their minister to tell them the truth and to have some type of not only theological integrity, but just personal integrity to say, you know, how can you help lead me forward so that I can get the best out of my life? And these are conversations that are important to have, but I'm big on accountability. You know, how do we hold people with power accountable? I think one is by telling the truth, of course. One is by having conversations like this to sort of expose it. But I also think that, you know, we have to, as a community, Black community, we have to um, get more engaged with politics in general. You know, if politicians are the ones controlling Black ministers, nonprofits, civic organizations, then to disengage from that, you're already setting yourself up to continue to be at the bottom of the totem. But if you engage that process, then hopefully we elect better leadership. Now the relationships that these others are trying to be in relationship with from the political side, uh, there's more of an opportunity for it to be an actual uplift rather than just self-interest all the time. Now this is I don't want to go too deep here, but this is an issue that we've been wrestling with for hundreds of years, you know, ever since emancipation. We've been behind the eight ball when it comes to politics in America. Once we got past Reconstruction and that sunshine, it all went sort of downhill after that. And we've been scrambling to try to get a place at the table ever since. We see this happening on a national level, on a local level. And that's why a lot of times that self-interest supersedes community interest, because we have Black politicians who get elected and they just want to hold on to what they have at any cost. It doesn't matter who they screw, who they you know f over. They just want to maintain that little modicum of power that they have. And the only way to really combat that is to get more people in our community involved with the political process, voting, working on campaigns and elections, education around how these things actually work. Because you can go vote, but are you an educated voter? Are you a high information voter? Are you a low information voter? Do you really understand the issues on the ballot? We have to do a better job. People like me have to do a better job at doing that work so that when we go vote, we're doing it from an empowered point of view and not just an exercise in what we should be doing, but an actual exercise in making educated choices that are actually going to uplift our community from a social, economic, across the board. So,
Yeah, I think you put that eloquently and the breakdown of people. But where I'm at, the accountability part is major, and there
major.
hasn't been any accountability in the Black community because, as far as I'm concerned, just like Putin got a stranglehold on Russia, the political parties that represent the Black community here that have a stranglehold, and they go to their white daddy and get their marching orders. And I don't care whether they senators, state reps, or what.
Sure.
And then they bring, as far as I'm concerned, those schemes into our community, and they and the white daddies don't really even give them a bunch of money. They
No.
they put them in position to get funding from the state, the city, not their money, just like with the stadiums and what have you. But like I said, this is the first time. Now I moved here in '78. I never missed the little tiny election.
Uh-huh.
But the public here, Black public, they don't see any benefit over the last 35 years by going to the polls.
I think I think this most recent election on this stadium deal really did expose some of
Send
the
a
things you're
message.
talking about. Absolutely, because you had every civic organization, nearly every nonprofit, black, white, across the board, every chamber of commerce, nearly every minister, every politician got
They all
behind it.
wanted it.
Got behind it. And what were they really getting behind? They were getting behind the largest transfer of public
Well,
wealth
40
to
years.
private interests. That's what they were getting behind. And
But
I
that
think that that was lost under the guise of, no, we're just supporting touchdowns and home runs. No, that's not what this was about. This was an election about, are we going to allow billionaires to have access to poor people's money for 40 straight
I'm
years,
I'm more
or are we going to
interested. I'm
stand with
cutting you off.
community
Hold,
interests?
I'm cutting you off on that.
Go
It's not
ahead.
are we gonna allow. I mentioned some names. As they have had the trust of the community, and they have been representing the community, and they look like us, but they don't act like we should be acting. And when we say about what these other people are doing, my great grandfather didn't, no matter what the white people or anybody, we worked together. And the church was where we felt relief because we didn't even have no places to meet beside the church, less more,
Right.
unless you meeting in your yard.
Right.
And we were willing to bet on one another. We were willing to say we want what you're offering, but what we can give you with our solid black vote, we got to have more. And when they throw a little chunk of meat out to us, oh, hurry up and give it to them. Deliver the community on a platter. And Cascade Media for 2024, they can look at this, they can try to take me down, but I got a poster getting ready to come up, The Usual Suspects. And it's just going to have a silhouette, and I'm going to ask the community, who are the usual suspects? Make comments. And it's not me talking, but it's your community saying that you are a usual suspect and you keep doing this. And I'm going to be trying to get some of these people out of office because we do have the family name don't mean nothing if you're not delivering.
And I think that's the ticket right there. And that's why I say we. What are we going to do? Because you have this power concentrated in the hands of a few people, but how do you change it? You got to you got to beat these people in elections and you got to replace them. That is the only way to stop what you're talking about from continuing to be perpetuated. Because a lot of times in politics, once a politician turns out, it's not often the case that it's in real open seat type of situation. They handpick the next person to replace them who's going to continue to do the same thing that they've been doing. And so in order to interrupt that, you got to be engaged with this. You got to be, you have to have people like myself engaging people in the public, educating them on what's actually about to happen. You have to build up the next generation of politicians with integrity who actually understand that I'm serving in this role to serve the public, to bring something back to the community that I'm serving, not just my own personal interests. It has to be all of those things, but you got to win. And that's what I tell people all the time. My company wouldn't be worth a dime if we couldn't win. So it's not just about engaging, it's about getting the job done. And this most recent election really showed that, because when you have everyone lining up on one side and you have the public in the most feeble, vulnerable situation on the other, you need some champions who are willing to say, hey, don't worry, don't fear these people. You can beat them. We're going to beat them. And if we do that together, there is nothing that we cannot get done. And I'm a believer in that.
I'm a believer. I keep giving this a parable, basically. McDonald's and all these fast food companies were frying saturated fat. This is for years, we didn't know it. But about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, the mothers, they said, this is killing our kids. We ain't buying your product. They hurry up and change and pull it. So, from my perspective, this was really good for the community vote no. And not just vote no, that should, as you say, send a message to our Black political leadership. Absolutely. That you're not going to just keep doing this.
Absolutely.
And that's why I come. And then the other thing, how you were saying about your company, and your company can't survive on no business. Sometimes you have to bend when you don't want to bend. And I'm gonna give you an example. So, I won't carry the NFL or on any of my anything. And we have a big sports network. And so one of my vice presidents, we keep going back and forth. And he's like, well, you in business to make money. And we go back and forth. And so they try to corny, well, what are you in business for? Aren't you in business to make money? Yes, but I have principles.
Right.
And that's where I see the difference. Because what they'll say, well, I'm here to make money, or I got to do good. No, you should have some principles. There's certain things that you will do, and there's certain things that you won't do. But how I see things, these Negroes will do anything. You can sell them anything if you're giving them a crumb.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. You're preaching the gospel, because I see it every day, and it's the saddest thing in the world. And it's not always people who have bad hearts, but they compromise so much because they're really afraid. They're afraid of these corporate interests. They're afraid of the people who they think they can be destroyed by. And my thing is, if you go into any situation fearful, you're going to be destroyed. And my thing, just from a Black perspective, we've endured everything already. What the hell am I going to be walking around afraid of some corporate interest or some billionaire with money? I don't give a damn about that. We've endured everything already. There's nothing actually to fear. You might as well stand on principle. You might as well take the risk. You might as well put yourself out there. You might as well stand for the weak against the strong. You might as well do these things, because to not do it,
You know
To
what?
me, it's the worst. It's the
You know what you sound
worst
like? One of my
possible
partners
position.
said, Carlos, I don't know what's wrong with black people. They think if I talk to these white people a certain way, dress a certain way, you're gonna get a different outcome.
That's
I'm
what they
like,
really think.
how's that work for us? It
Yeah.
hasn't. But one thing I can say, and I'm critical of Freedom Inc., but one thing I can say, when I moved here in 78, you wasn't going to build anything. You wasn't going to do anything unless Freedom got a slice. And when Freedom got their slice, it trickled down. We had contractors that were working. We had all kinds of things. When you have some power, this development and everything, you can stop all of that unless you get what you want, not what they give you.
Right.
They don't tell you, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to give you this, this is what we want.
Right.
And this is what we'll give our vote to. And far as being afraid, how I sit, you have no reason to be afraid, because if you're organized, they're going to be afraid of you. You don't have to have the largest.
No.
If you have a block, how Freedom operated then, they had that block vote no matter what the subject or the law was. They could get on either side. When the two powers start punching it out, they was almost equal. And whatever Freedom went to, they was going to win. And that's when the community was like this. And now, behind 40 years, I watched all of these politicians. I watched Charles Hasley. I watched Doc Holliday. I'm naming names. Bobby Hernandez, Crompton, all of them. Freedom. I watched all of them, how they enriched themselves, but not like how they doing now. They had functions, and they deserve to benefit from their work in politics. But now it's just with families, friends, and they act like they media. They always want to be smiling and taking pictures with, but what are you delivering the milk, butter, and bread to the community? They're not delivering.
Well, I think Freedom in particular. In full transparency, I've helped Freedom in elections. I've helped elect candidates that they endorsed. I respect their legacy, and I respect many of the people whose names you just named, even though I didn't have the pleasure of knowing them personally. However, I think that it's problematic as an organization, particularly a Black organization, when outside interest, you can call them white interest, you can call them whatever you want to call
That's the
them,
only kind of
but when
interest I know.
outside interest are really the ones dictating what's happening internally in your organization, because of the fact that they are funding operations within your organization. That's problematic now, because it may be a Black face to it. It may even be people within your organization who have good intentions for the Black community. But if you ain't buttering your own bread, if somebody else is buttering your bread, then they get to tell you which plate you can put it on and which plate you can't. And I just think organizations like Freedom Incorporated, they give their power away every time they do that. And they open themselves up to lose credibility. And they also open themselves up to get political losses in elections when they do that, because they may get behind particular people and interests in an election because their bread is being buttered by outside interests that they otherwise may not have gotten behind. But they need it because they don't have any self-sustaining or self-generating way to keep themselves going. And that's really what happened in this last election. Freedom Incorporated, respectfully, they were behind this stadium sales tax also. and we beat them by a landslide. That's not good for an organization who says they represent Black interests, because clearly the vast majority of Black people were against transferring public wealth to private interests. Isn't that the side that an organization with that legacy should have stood on? You got to ask yourself those things, and that's when accountability comes in. It's not to poo-poo them entirely, but it is to say, look, no one's above accountability, and we have to look at how we're operating organizations if we're really going to be doing the public good.
Well, where I'm at, I call them all out. The Urban League, Freedom Inc., the Urban Summit, NAACP. How Cascade is the only Black-owned digital media company in the Midwest, and you don't do no business with them, and you credible, and every one of your politicians has been on the show, and you understand how important media is. They conquer a country, first thing they do is seize all the media.
Yeah.
No, you don't want Cascade to succeed because you want to keep taking them handouts from the white people. And that's as simple as I can say it. All white people are not bad white people. They all people. But in our community, these people like what I call being on the titty. And it's got them drunk. And then if I wasn't independent financially, I couldn't say what I'm saying because they would surely bury me. And when I tell them all, come at me if you want, because I'm a gangster posing as a businessman.
I feel you. I feel you on that.
And
I feel you on that.
And when we, just like you have some power, are afraid to speak out, we worse than them, because the Lord has put us, and I'm not a Jesus man, but the Spirit has put us in unique positions.
Absolutely.
And when you don't speak the truth, that's a crime against humanity, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because there's very few people that are in position to speak the truth without. It's just, I go back to that Cat Williams, and I don't know a whole lot about that, but when you start speaking the truth, you see all these people falling, especially in Hollywood, because there's so much stuff going on. You'd have to be FBI, CIA, and then you still couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, there's a lot going on
behind the scenes. And I understand that, and that's why like I said, I did not vote, because I am just tired of trying to 3-card Molly. Gangster, you know about 3-card. Where's it's a trick.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we didn't lose by 1 vote, knowing you didn't vote. So because I know you was on the north side.
As far as I was concerned,
I'm glad we didn't lose by 1.
To the community, and I knew they were going to respond because of the response I was getting on the commentary that I was doing, that I had never gotten since I've been in business.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's amazing how blinded people can become when they choose the what's in front of them versus the long-term viability option. And I think in our community, we do that a lot. You know, people flash a little something in front of us.
The free food giveaways, the free this, the free that. And, you know, it's easy. Nobody wants to really work at this point in our history. I hear this from all kinds of businesses, Black businesses, white businesses. Really, people just want to sit down and eat. And a lot of them are not qualified to do what they say they're doing.
You got that right.
All right. So therefore, what you have is, excuse my language, public. You can bullshit the baker and get a bun, but you can't bullshit me and get one. Yeah. And that's what you got going around. How could you even have a Trump running around here like this? Media controls minds. Minds control pocketbooks.
Yeah, we're in for a doozy later this year. I mean, You got
Talk
Trump
about that a
batting
little bit.
down indictments. You got hundreds of $1 million in payouts he's gonna have to make. But yeah, he's a Republican nominee. And on the other side, to my Democratic friends, you got a feeble, weak president who probably should retire, but because of the perverted nature of politics in this country, particularly within the Democratic Party, you're putting him up to run again because you feel as though you have no better options, which is
Yep.
really a sad, sad, sad indictment, right? If he's our best option. Now, people will say, well, don't you support the Democratic Party? Don't you support the Democratic platform? All of these different things. He's just a figurehead, but we need a Democrat in there. Okay, even if I went for that, you still need a person at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue that can deliver a message that is believable, that is able of rallying a country around the things that are important. And right now, we do not have that. And quite frankly, it puts us in a vulnerable position to a Donald Trump to take back the White House. Because there's no way in hell that someone who is experiencing all the volatility that that man is experiencing should have any chance at being president again.
In a
But
dog
he
catcher.
does
A dog
because who
catcher.
he's
You
running
can't
against.
hold it. You can't rent an apartment. You can't do nothing with a record, or if they think you got a record, they'll
Yeah,
think you done something. But where I'm at, black people, you don't see that is naked white supremacy, the Republican Party per se. But as a businessman, now I told you what we're getting ready to do because the Republican Party people have contacted us.
yeah,
So they want to lease 5 or 6 of our networks. Now, why wouldn't I want to do that? I don't have no allegiance to the Democrats. They never spend a quarter with us. They take us for granted, you know. And how can you have a win when you have people like me that are hardened black nationalists ready to do business with the Republicans? I'm like, so you
that's
really are running away the people that are really on your team and have some value, but
yeah,
you don't see you want to use that value because of personalities or whatever, and the community loses out. There's no way Jackson County and Kansas City metro community should not be connected to its black digital media company. And every political organization and the city, Parks and Rec, because you have a substantial black population. And so if you're doing with Parks and Rec and you're letting the community know what you're doing, how you not doing no advertisement with the black? You know what they want to do? The Paul newspaper, the last page, Eric's paper, the all of these things that deliver bi-weekly and weekly. Don't nobody need no news a week late. When we did this interview, you contacted me 12 o'clock last night. Yeah, I can do the interview tomorrow. Bam, we on.
yeah,
That is how the world is working in a
yeah,
real time way. And
absolutely.
and our leadership don't want our community connected because they want to keep doing what they're doing. But this is a wake up, people. I'm going to be pointing fingers at you and doing a dossier on you to show what you've done versus what you've said and all them pictures you putting on Facebook about how you at this function and that function. That is not changing the law or the policies that have us handcuffed. And we're going to get busy on that because we got a little change now that we can do some investigative reporting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's needed. I think we got to start addressing the issues that's harming our community the most. I have some involvement with this next Jackson County prosecutor race coming up. Violence in Kansas City is so out of control,
Off the
and
charts.
I think that what's really hurting our community, the Black community, is the fact that no one is really willing to say uh, what we say behind closed doors. And that is, we're not raising these kids the way we need to be. I know that everyone doesn't come from a two-family home. I understand that every adult is not responsible when they have a child. I understand all of these things. But there were a time when you could come from a broken home and there was still some adult available to keep you on the right track. So there's really no excuse for why so many of our young people are running the streets with war weapons, shooting up malls, mowing down innocent people at parades, engaging in some of the most grotesque violence that you ever would want to see. It's a shame when we see more funerals than we see individuals set up to be successful in life. You know, where are our institutions within our community that's preaching accountability 365 days a year, saying, what are we going to do? Not what city program do we need to put in place? What money do we need from the federal government to create something in order to do something? No, what are we going to do on my street, on my block, in my community? What am I going to do to stop it? And that is a sad indictment on us. Now, we can look to the prosecutor's office and we can say, well, maybe we need to elect a person who is a little tougher on crime. But then you'll have people from the Black community shouting, oh, what you going to do? You're going to mass incarcerate? You're going to mass incarcerate? You're just going to put everybody behind bars? You're going to do it? I'm so sick and tired of that type of rudimentary, elementary level discussion. Because the fact of the matter is this, I don't care how progressive we think we've become. Most people in the world, whether it's the United States or anyone else in the world, the person who has a war weapon mowing people down, most people believe that MFer belongs in prison for a long, long time. Whether he's 18 years old or 88 years old, he belongs in prison. He needs to be taken out of society and he needs to be set off on the side because that is the type of behavior that does not belong in civil society. Why have we gotten to the point to where we view young people behaving in this manner? And our position is, oh, we don't have enough resources to help Tyrone understand that that's not what he should be doing. Look, prisons exist for a reason. Everyone should not go to it. Low-level offenses, you shouldn't be rotting behind bars for the rest of your
I
life.
know I've
Sure,
been there. I didn't like it.
sure. We agree with that. We've gotten to the point where we agree, like, look, prison shouldn't exist to put marijuana, people peddling marijuana behind bars. Hell, is legal in a lot of places now. But prison should exist to put murderers, rapists, people who assault people. That it should exist for that reason. Whether they're Black, white, Asian, Native American, it does not matter. And I think we have to reel some of this so-called progressivism back in and start using common sense. Because when you look at Kansas City and you have 180 some odd murders in one calendar year, and your response to that is, we don't have enough programming to connect with young people, that is a problem. And it ain't a white problem. It ain't a white supremacy problem. It is a Black community problem, and we need to address it now. And so whoever is going to be in that prosecutor's office, I would like to hope that they're a person who can at least think this way. And we won't see a continuation of sort of this white liberal progressivism who puts themselves out as if they are protecting the Black community when really their actions are causing it more harm.
Right. Where I come from on all the crime and all of that, it's not about that. It's about economics, and it all goes back to what we started off. It's policy, uh, redlining, the law, and what have you. So I'm old enough to see the change in the Black family, the Black middle class. Back in the 60s and 70s, you had the packing houses, you had General Motors, you had Ford. So,
Yeah.
And you didn't have all these drugs in our community. We've always had drugs in the community, but there was a certain segment of Black men that were coming through the pipeline. I'm saying, when I say the educational pipeline, coming from the South and what have you, where the Black family was whole. Might have been poor, but you respected your elders, and
Correct.
all of these type things were bred into you. Now you come up to the 60s, it's my generation that start going to the Black universities and being able to see what life is really about, and then coming out. And after the riots, the white people made some things available in all Black communities because they were burning down everything. They said, we got to do something. And those programs, model cities and the different things. I used to be in Detroit, out there by 7 Mile. I would come there in the summertime because my old lady was from there. And I understand what was going on there. And what's going on in every Black community is the same thing. And it's really at this point, because those places closed down, they brought the drugs in our community, and now the gangs popped up. We've always had gangs, but nothing like the Bloods, the Crips, and what have you. When that whole thing hit, that was on the West Coast. I never thought it would get to New York. I came home, they had blocks with Bloods and Crips, and now you got the blind leading the blind, because now those packing houses and all them places have closed, and now technology is outpacing our our ability to socialize and everything. You got the MTVs on. Now you got and the young people are following the newest inventions, the newest everything. And now, instead of you as a parent having control of your kids, the networks have control of your kids.
Right.
And hold it, there's very few programs that don't have a lot of violence in it. And when Bush first got elected, I forgot what year it was, all the TV shows, you got the cops jumping out of cars and all of this chasing people, and all that seems cool, but now that's becoming reality. And again, technology is outpacing our social ability to handle certain things, and the breakdown of when you took the male out the Black family, and then you had these women movements, bring home the bacon, fried in the pan.
You're gonna get in trouble, Carlos.
And
you about to get in trouble.
Yeah, hey, I was married 30 years. I've been divorced 10. No, but the truth is the light. And I think you've been speaking the truth. I think I'm speaking it how I see it, how I lived it. And that gets
this is a very conservative conversation we're having, right? This is the conversation that has been lost. Even though I think there's so much to be gained if we can recover some of this that we used to have. I don't want to progress our way out of believing that a man should raise his kids, a man should stay in a relationship in order to raise a child together with whomever they are with. I don't want to progress my way past that because I think history shown, not just in these United States, but anywhere, that that is the type of environment that is best suited to raise children. Now, I know that that's going to raise some
Nurturing.
eyebrows because you're going to get single parents saying, well, my children aren't running wild and I had to raise them on my own. I I understand that. When my father was murdered when I was 4 years old, my mother raised me and my brothers and sisters on her own. I'm not poo-pooing that, but I'm talking about an environment that is best suited, not survival mode, one that is best suited to start to turn back the tide of these children just running wild, like you said, where entertainment is raising them, where their minds are being polluted against just simple morals, courtesy, simple ideals of the fact that I should be educated, I should be literate, I should be thinking about what I want to do with the rest of my life. I should value myself, respect myself. I shouldn't want to harm anybody because I don't want anybody to harm me. Like this is just very
But
fundamental
hold it, the
things that,
solution, when I said this black media company, not just because it's mine, how you the NAACP, the things you're talking about, you can implement. You can say,
yeah.
run these programs, tie into your base and say, these are the things, and we're doing it weekly. We doing this organization's doing this weekly and plugging into our community. They don't want that.
But right. But what's the hurdle to that? The hurdle to that is this type of conversation that you and I are having is too conservative for most mainstream so-called progressive people to stomach because they want you to believe that none of these things are anyone's fault. It's just the virtue of things like being poor. It's just by virtue of things like, white supremacy all on its own, lack of education. And my thing is, come on, man. I'm not saying none of those things don't play any part to some of this devastation, but we never was no poorer than we was the day they said we was emancipated. Cut it out. We were the most literate race in less than a generation after that. Broken families, give me a break. They were snatching our families apart and selling us. Come
I
on,
come
cut it
from one
out.
that didn't hurt me.
Cut it out. I mean, we gotta stop reaching for these easy excuses. And we have to start personalizing it and having some self-determination to say, you know what? I can walk out of my house today and have a conversation with a child that could change the trajectory of their life if I choose to. If I choose not to walk past them on my way to the corner store and just sort of shake my head, I can choose to find out who their mother is and where they live and go to their door and knock on the door and say, hey, I saw Tyrone on my way to the corner store. I don't know your situation or nothing, but I just want you to know that I live down the street on this block. And maybe, I'm not trying to step on your toes or nothing, and I'm not no weirdo or nothing, but I just want you to know that I'm a man who lives on this block and I'm available because I live right down there. I'm not trying to get with you or nothing, but I just want you to know. Like, we have gotten away from that type of accountability within our community, and we got to get back to
It's
that.
strange. Hold up, man. It's strange. When I start last year, I start teaching some eighth grade, seventh grade, media, and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
It's real hard because most of our kids, everything. And when I say most, I'm talking about the bottom 2/3 of our community. They're suspicious of everything because the
Everything.
adults that have been around them have been child molesting and doing a bunch of different things. And
Yeah.
it's no different with me. I think you've known me for a miniature time. I think you can tell certain things about me. And being real when the world around you is fake is really hard
Very
because
well.
uh, they're
Very well.
lying to you, they're smiling in your faces, and you don't see Mr. Nelson at any of these functions or anything because I can't stand to be around. And what I say, the black bourgeoisie, and they're all gaming and
Yeah.
smiling and
Yeah.
and look what I got on and look
Yeah.
what I'm eating and all
Right.
that. And then I sound bitter when I bring these things up. It's more
Yeah.
so I I like to be seen and I like to be clean. But what part of your income is going directly to something that is giving you results? And that's where I'm on the NAACP, the Urban League, Freedom and all of and Urban Summit. Here you got a black digital media company that's got tentacles all over, and you don't do nothing with them. You don't spend no money. And every time we contact any of them, well, you know our budget, and you know this, and you know that. I know you're full of shit. That's what I know. And I named those organizations, and I'm saying it again. All of y'all are full of shit. And you
Well, I
have
think speaking.
you have had an impact 50 years ago. The Urban League, the freedom, and the different things that represented the black community. But you had a whole different type of leadership, and
Right.
y'all have stayed the same where the population and our community has changed and our needs have changed and how you go about acquiring the things that our community needs have changed, and you had to operate, to me, in a definitely more concerted effort to bring centralized power to your community. And you cannot do that by just putting things out for your elderly that you know they have to vote certain ways because they want to keep
Right.
their fund, you know, the little social security and different things, but you don't
Right.
really have a wider audience.
No,
And
no, they
and,
don't.
and you don't want a wider audience because you're you're doing what you're doing in the political realm to take care of you and yours, and you're not
Right.
doing what you really are sent there to do.
Yeah. I think I think that's it in a nutshell, and I think it's a sad indictment. I think, look, I mean, I know it personally myself. My circle is very, very small, even though I work with a lot of different people. Because speaking the truth is unpopular. And when you do it consistently, people just tend to back up away because they know who they're associated with and they don't want to mess up associations that they have. And to me, I don't really give a damn about any of that. I just want to, number one, be successful, but my success is rooted in my community being successful. It's not just about our company winning elections. It's about how important do these elections mean to my community, and is a win for us a win for them? And we tend to navigate towards situations where the answer to that is yes all the time.
What I want to
And
do is close out, uh,
yeah, we
and I
went on. We've been on about an hour.
more than an hour. But
I told you I was going to give you, I was
yeah,
going to
but
show
hold
it
it.
for
Let
you.
me say this: we talked about some things off camera a month ago
Mhm.
about you. You know, like I said, I really, and when we get off, I want to talk to you about that because I think speaking truth to power is a powerful tool, but you've got to have someone that has the fortitude and the confidence to feel that they can speak truth. And even though people might take it with a grain of salt, they will say, this is truth. I need to listen and we need to do better. What are your closing words for our audience?
Stay engaged. If you're not engaged, get engaged, particularly in politics. So many people have a negative view of politics. They feel like their vote doesn't matter. They feel like even community involvement doesn't matter. You know, young people in particular, because so many of these older people are just too far gone. You can't save them. But to young people in particular, find out what you're passionate about and lean towards that. You need to stay focused on the things that are going to set you up for success. And they may not be what your peers are doing or what they're involved with. Imitation means nothing. Individuality is where it's at. That's your gift. That's who you are. And no one can do it like you can do it. Lean towards that. And it doesn't always have to be sports and entertainment, because what you'll find is entertainment, despite the glitz and the glamour, when you look up underneath the hood of it, it's the poorest profession that you can be involved in. Do something that's going to last, that's going to make a positive impact on your community, and it's going to set yourself up not just to have money and power, but it's going to give you satisfaction that money cannot buy. And so encourage your peers to do the same. And to the older generation, I say this: if you can't deliver results for your community, it's time for you to step aside, because this next generation that is coming are going to be armed and willing to push you aside if you choose not to. I count myself among them. I'm willing to work with anybody who's willing to uplift my community, but those who stand in the way and enrich themselves off the backs of my community, I'm coming for you, and we will win.
Well, we both coming for them, baby boy. So as we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.